Today on Cinema and Cocktails, what you gonna do when you get out of jail? I'm gonna have some fun. What do you consider fun? Fun, natural fun. That's right. Today we are focusing on 3 crime dramas that focus on life after getting out of the big house. The first is about a guy who wants to reunite with his family in The Ghost Who Walks. The second centers around the anger a daughter has towards her father in Night Comes On. And the last is an epic tale of sacrifice and redemption in Shot Caller. All 3 can be found on Netflix. So you know the routine, folks. Let's watch these movies and let's make those drinks. I hate it when people get all kind of in a tizzy and like to call other people a snitch or a rat. I mean, maybe it's just me, but would you go to jail for somebody else? I mean, I know I wouldn't. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, if it meant trying to keep somebody alive, okay, I get it, you know. But the whole culture of snitching and ratting essentially is, you know, it's a survival thing, correct? And that is the name of the game, right? You get points for staying alive, not dying with honor. So I don't know. Maybe I think I would rather just be a snitch who's like hiding out somewhere, you know, as long as I'm still alive, than dying with my boots on for the sake of the family or for the sake of my reputation. Like I said, that's just me. I'm a suburban kid who grew up in the outskirts of Washington, D.C. during the 70s and the 80s. So, you know, I don't know much about this gang culture, this gang life, but I do know this. I ain't going to jail for nobody unless it's somebody in my family who I don't want to die or who I don't want to go to jail instead. But I'm not. Yeah, that ain't happening. So call me a snitch or a rat if you have to, whatever. And that's the premise of our first film today, with about The Ghost Who Walks. It's about an imprisoned criminal who rats out his former boss with this last chance to kind of pull his family together. And the film stars Garland Scott. Now, before I go any further, the film basically stars, I don't want to say no-name people because that kind of like disrespects their career, but I will say there are people who you may not have heard of. Okay, so I'll put it like that. Garland Scott plays Nolan. Frank Mosley plays Stitches. Alexia Rasmussen plays Lena. Gil Darnell plays Donnie. And Dasha Nekrosova plays Mitzi. So again, people you probably just really haven't heard of. Now, Garland basically did a lot of shorts and really took off inside of this film. He hasn't really been in too much of anything. Frank Mosley has the most credits. He's got 85 credits, and you've probably seen him in Americana and another movie called Some Beats, and he was in something else called Freeland. Alexius Rasmussen has probably the most notable credits. She was on Blue Bloods, and she was on a film called Our Idiot Brother, and she was also in another feature film called Listen to Your Heart. Gil Donnie, who has 48 credits to his name. He's an Australian actor, mostly foreign stuff. He also appeared in a lot of shorts, but he was also on Bones. He was on NCIS. He was also on the reboot of MacGyver. So again, like I said, if you don't look for these people, you probably didn't know who they were. But when it came to this film, The Ghost Who Walks, I thought they all did an impeccable job. Now, Garland Scott plays Nolan, who is a tough, hardened criminal, coolest guy in the room. Not a character, but, you know, a little bit over the top. And I can't imagine someone going through so much, because I just can't imagine someone going through so much and being so cool. Now, Nolan has one goal, and that's essentially to reunite with his family and just try to get out of the area. And at certain points in the film, we do see a hardened criminal who does have these kind of like tender moments, which kind of creates this interesting juxtaposition and complexity to his character, allowing you to essentially sympathize with him. By the time he reaches his goal, I will say this: we do have a view of a new Nolan. Now, Stitches, he's the funny foil in the film. That's played by Frank Mosley. Now, he just seems to flow with the violence and the mayhem, and he is clearly unhinged and just living his life. Not so much fearless as he is worried about the dangers that lurk in the world upon which he lives. So it's kind of like he knows what's out there, but he does his best to avoid it, but he also kind of lives with it as well. His interaction with Nolan does become a beacon for those who are seeking Nolan out, and ultimately reduces him into something that he doesn't want to become. Donnie is the head gangster. Not much screen time for him in this film. He is hell bent on killing Nolan. But what's interesting is that in the end of the movie is how he treats Nolan. I thought it was kind of interesting, almost as though there was like this sense of empathy. Now, I can't say Donnie's character changed very much, but he does have an understanding of what Nolan's circumstances are, and he kind of has this moment of sympathy almost. And last but not least, Lena, she's the girlfriend who's kind of caught in between two worlds, the man that she loves and the man that she is with. She goes through a series of changes, not sure about what she wants versus what she needs, and she vacillates back and forth until the end of the movie where the decision is ultimately made for her. Now, the dialogue in this film is an interesting blend of exposition and storytelling. The conversations between the characters speak of the past and the future, which makes it easy to follow along with the story. Now, since these are mainly gangsters, there are moments of like poetic subtext and these like soliloquies to kind of help explain motivations. And at times it doesn't quite seem all the realistic. It does add mood and texture to the world upon which Nolan exists along with the other characters. Now, when it comes to the story, I think to me, the conflict mainly resides within Nolan. Internally, he wants to make things right for he and his girlfriend and his daughter. He has clearly done some terrible things in his past and that he must atone for, and it has cost him dearly. It's what's motivated him and it pushes him that pushed him to ultimately turn state's evidence and get released early, which kind of begins this film on its journey. Now, he really wants to see his daughter. That's what's kind of pushing this whole narrative, the desire to see his daughter. And that ultimately would make it right for his soul. Now, externally, it's just Nolan versus Donnie's crime family. You know, he needs to escape Donnie's crew for one night because they're trying to kill him. And if he can survive and collect his family and escape, then everything will be okay. So that kind of alludes to the fact of the plot that we have. The plot essentially is basically like a dude with a major, major problem. When I look at, the Save the Cat templates, this guy, Nolan, his issue is that he is unfortunately a snitch. He has very few friends and the rest of the world seems to be out to get him. Now, I wouldn't say that Donnie and his crew are the most intimidating force, as they are relentless, because they have one job, and it is to kill him for his transgressions at all costs. The only question is, will Nolan be able to escape them? Thematically, I thought that this film had a loyalty theme to it. Nolan was ultimately disloyal to his crew. He turned state's evidence and he snitched against his buddies. This disloyalty is what sets the story in motion. However, when he gets out, he looks to his only friend Stitch for loyalty to help him get out of a situation. And it's that relationship that helps him to survive. He does look to other characters for loyalty and support, but they refuse, citing Nolan's disloyalty. Even Nolan's dad cracked on him for being disloyal. There's also a transformative theme. I do believe I saw an idea of which, I think I saw the writer kind of project the idea out there that Nolan was just not the same guy as he was before. It's kind of like he was this hardened criminal, this killer, this guy who did whatever he had to do to survive with his crime family. But now that has a daughter and he wants to see his girlfriend or his wife, I'm not quite sure about their relationship, but he's not the same guy anymore. And he just wants to be a father and potentially a husband or a boyfriend now and just get away from this lifestyle. And that ultimately brings us to the last theme, which I do believe is love. It's an intense love for his girl, for his girlfriend, and for his daughter. That theme of love is it's that fuel that really motivates him to go find them at all costs and hopefully reunite them. The film rolls at a solid 1 hour and 46 minutes, and the structure of it is very well balanced. In the beginning, he gets out of jail. In the second act, he starts looking for his daughter. About midway through the film, things become more complicated as Donnie's crime family begins to move in. And then in the third act, he finally has an opportunity to confront Donnie, and you ultimately find out if Nolan gets away, or if he gets caught, or if he sees his daughter, or if he sees his wife. I'm not going to tell you. The director, Cody Stokes, and the film was written by Ben Bostic. They tell a great story. Stokes uses this shaky camera technique to create a very frenetic nature to the action sequences, giving you this sense that you're actually running with Nolan in certain scenes. In other scenes, the camera angle kind of gives you a symbolic sense of what's happening because it focuses on certain images, and you're left to interpret certain things. Very, very gritty sets were used to give you a real sense of what kind of lifestyle that this guy lived and where he lived, because tough people come from tough circumstances, and make no mistake, Nolan is tough. There's not a lot of music in this film, but I will say this. When certain songs are played, they are definitely designed to elicit an emotion, and it does kind of pull at your heartstrings a little bit, and it does kind of help transition from scene to scene. The pacing of the plot, though, I thought was a little bit uneven. There are some moments of high-paced action, and then there's moments where there's nothing really going on. And that's fine. I have no problem with, speeding up and slowing down and speeding up and slowing down. The only problem is that when you slow the film down, don't have it just be filler. Make sure that you are doing something that's kind of pushing the story along instead of having people just kind of sit around and just, chat or shoot the breeze. The editing does a good job of taking you from shot to shot, and it does pull you into the action. And the sequencing between those calm moments does, like I said, it creates an uneven flow, but if you're able to kind of ride it out and wait for the next big scene to happen, you'll be entertained. Now, what worked, there was pure tension throughout this movie. You kept wondering if Nolan was going to make it. What didn't work was it was a very, very linear plot, straightforward. And I wish there was more of a backstory to Nolan and his relationship with Donnie and Lena. Now, this film was ultimately rated R because of language and sex, and obviously some violent deaths that happened on screen. As far as the unconvincing possibilities, my Aristotle index, I didn't really see any. It kind of unfolded the way I thought most gangster films would unfold. There was anything that made me question, that would never really happen. It pretty much played out like the way you think it's going to play out. So the IMDb rating gave it an average 5.3. There was no Rotten Tomatoes score. So I'm going to give it a score. I would probably give it right along that borderline of about 62%, which is right above that line where, films are either considered to be fresh or rotten. I think it's just barely fresh. The audience score did give it a 65. Me, I gave it a 3.5, according to my, standard grading scale of remotes. 3.5 remotes. It was taut, it was fast moving, and the linear plot moves very, very quickly with very little depth. The theme of loyalty reigns supreme in this movie, and it's interesting how it helps characters and how it hurts characters. I thought Garland Scott gave a great performance, and you're not quite sure if you sympathize with him for what, for him trying to escape, or if you think he gets what he deserves for being a snitch. And the bulk of the story hangs on these very basic gangster storylines, and there's very little plot twist or imagination, and the ending kind of leaves a little bit to be desired, and it drags at certain places. Now, while there's no Academy Award winning performances in this movie, I thought that Scott did a solid job along with the other individuals, creating a very entertaining film for you to sit back and relax and enjoy. Nolan is on the run. So the opportunity for him to sit back and have a drink, he's not really going to have it. But let's just think for a moment. If there was a off-screen moment in this movie where he was to sit down and kind of chill and have something to sip on, I would assume he would have a brown derby. Has that kind of gangster-like sound, that gangster name to it, the gangster feel. And when you make a brown derby, you need about 1.5 ounces of bourbon, 1 ounce of grapefruit juice, freshly squeezed, and about 1/2 ounce of some honey syrup. And if you want to garnish it, you take the little, a little grapefruit rind twist and kind of put it on the glass. I chose this cocktail because honestly, it's a bitter cocktail for bitter circumstances. I mean, this guy really has no way out, and he must deal with the bitterness and the consequences of his decisions. And while he doesn't seem bitter, am I saying bitter too much? I think I've said bitter like 3 times. While he doesn't seem bitter about his situation, this drink symbolically catches his situation. Wait for it. A bitter start with a very smooth and sweet finish.